Hi everyone, it's the end of 2024 and I thought it would be a good opportunity to give a quick update on my slightly odd collection of cars. I'm always on the lookout for new interesting cars I've always wanted to own, slightly unusual cars, performance cars, engines I've always liked, for example, and because I have limited space I have to constantly chop and change cars. So I thought this was a good chance for an overview. This year I've had to make some pretty difficult decisions, actually selling a few cars and possibly selling the best car I've ever owned actually. But I've also had some really exciting new additions. So today's video is a quick summary of the cars that I've sold this year and why I've sold them. Also a recap of some of the cars that have stayed in my collection this year and what I've been doing with them. And then finally I'll talk through the new additions to the garage, some probably my favourite car at the end, so make sure you watch to the end. I have videos on my channel on all of these cars, so do check them out if any of them interest you. And I'm also always working on new and exciting additions to the collection. I've got a couple in the pipeline in fact, so watch this space for 2025. So I'll start with the cars that I've sold this year. First off, I sold a Mercedes W221 era S500, so that's the S-Class, long wheelbase, 5.5 litre naturally aspirated petrol. Lovely car, great car, absolutely enormous inside. It was a 2010, so you know, reasonable with on the tech side of things. Yeah, 360 horsepower, quite a big lazy beast to be honest. It's a huge car, of course. Why did I sell it? Well, I probably had it 9 to 12 months. I'd enjoyed it, I used it for commuting a bit. I had other similar cars at the time, an S600 and an E-Class Mercedes as well. So I figured it was kind of superfluous and that got sold. I also, as I alluded to, had my first V12, so a W220 era, so the previous generation, 2003 Mercedes S600. So that's the M275 engine, that's the 5.5 litre twin turbo V12 engine, 500 horsepower standard, an incredible 800 Newton meters. Absolutely epic engine, I loved it, so smooth, so powerful, mated to a 5-speed auto of course. I loved that car, it was great. The W220 era is prone to quite a lot of problems. You know, ABS problems, lots of electronic gremlins because it was quite early on in the development of some complex systems back then of course. I spent quite a lot on that car. I had some ABS issues, I had some ABC issues, sorry, with the suspension. I had some kind of bearing type noise. I got the pulley tensioner changed. I got the ABC pump changed. I seem to have some battery drain. I sorted all that. I also had a gearbox problem where it would get stuck in gear again. I sorted all that. As I say, I spent a lot. And I really enjoyed the car, particularly the engine, but it came to the point where I was wondering what was going to go wrong next. They're a bit of a money pit. I knew that when I got it. It's a bit of a risky car to buy, but having got it all sorted, I decided I think I'm just going to get rid of it because ultimately the worrying of what might go wrong next time started to really play on my enjoyment of the car, and I lost the enjoyment for that car, to be honest. So that one went. And then I guess the big one. I sold my E63 AMG. So that was an S212, so a state version, 2014, so a facelift of the 212 era car. Gutted to sell it. Probably the best car I've ever owned. All my family and friends couldn't really believe I was selling it. It was stage 1 modified, around about 700 horsepower, 1,000 Newton meters of torque. Absolutely brilliant car all round, huge fun. The noise from those engines, just the performance, supercar performance in a straight line once you're rolling. Epic car. So why did I sell it? Well, you know, it was a really, really tough one, but I figured 95% of the time I was driving it, I was kind of cruising on A roads. I still enjoyed every minute of it. All the overtakes I did every time I drove it. I just felt that I'd perhaps be better off using another car for commuting. In fact, my Audi A6 bi-turbo diesel, and actually buying another car that was more performance orientated, more driver orientated for kind of maximum driving enjoyment. And so that's what I did, and I'll feature that car at the end of the video as well. So gutted to get rid of that. Do I regret it? Yes, a little bit, but I've got a pretty awesome car to replace it as well, so I suppose that offsets it. What next? So I also sold my OCTAVIA VRS, so that was a 2006 model. I'd owned that car for 11 years. I bought it on about 57,000 miles. I sold it on 193,000 miles. Did me brilliantly. I just didn't have a use for it anymore. It was starting to get old, rusty sills, etc. It was the dog car for a couple of years or more, to be honest. And now the dogs don't go in the cars. I really didn't have a use case, so I sold it. Got very little money, served me incredibly well, that car, great car, but that's gone. I also sold another old Audi A6 I had, a C6 2.7 turbo diesel Le Mans edition car. Great car, actually. The C6, I think, probably better build quality than the C7 that I've got now. Again, good car, just didn't have a use case. Once I got my more modern bi-turbo diesel, which had loads more power and performance, but also gave much greater fuel efficiency as well. So that also went. So I also bought a motorhome in January of this year with the idea that I could cruise around, do a bit of work with the dog and explore lots of the UK, possibly see my friend in Spain. The dog doesn't travel now, so that went again this year as well. So moving on to those cars which I have kept in the collection this year. So starting maybe with this Audi A6 bi-turbo diesel, great all-rounder car. It's high mileage. It's now on 170,000 miles. I think I've racked up over 15,000 miles in a year in this car. It's slightly modified, 400 horsepower, about 820 newton meters of torque. Still gives me over 40 mpg. If you drive like a saint, it'll give you over 50 mpg. And for everyday driving, it fits the bill. It's great for winter because of the Quattro, obviously. It does everything, everything works, and for a commute, it's perfect, really. It's still relatively efficient, and still, especially with that torque, gives you enough overtaking power, which is crucial for me on some of the roads I drive to work, where you need to be able to overtake some slower moving traffic safely. So that's a keeper. So you can also probably just about see some orange from the GBS Zero. So that's another keeper. I've had that several years now. So that's a Lotus 7 copy called a GBS Zero, running a 2-litre blacktop Zetec engine. Quite a lot of modifications, probably running about 195 horsepower or so. Great fun. I haven't done as much in that car as I would like to. Obviously it's a fair weather car. I've perhaps not been quite as brave as when I took it out. Perhaps the summer wasn't quite as good as well. And also I got a new car which I used perhaps a lot more. So huge fun. It's a laugh out loud car, great experience. Everyone loves them. So I'm aiming to keep this and do a bit more driving, take it to a few more shows this year as well, car meets. There's always a lot of tinkering to do on this as well. So in fact, I had to replace some fuel hoses just to get it out of the garage today. So all the Land Rovers have also stayed in the collection this year. So the Defender Wolf, love the Defender Wolf, obviously ex-military, 1997, runs 300 TDI, soft top 110. These are just huge fun as well. I've done some off-roading. Again, I haven't used this as much as I'd have liked. I went to a couple of Land Rover meets, done some off-roading with friends, but actually haven't used it nearly as much as I usually use my Wolves. So I must try harder on this one. This has stayed in. My slightly unusual looking Series 2, you can see kind of modified for trials years ago. Very scruffy looking, bought this as a project car. I actually possibly used this even more than the Wolf. I do local trips, sometimes pop to the pub in it, but lots of local tracks around me. I use it to pick things up. It's a truck format as well, obviously. So it's 88-inch wheelbase, 1959. As I say, brought it as a project, haven't done quite as much to it as I would have liked. I've sorted out the running of it, so it runs nice and smoothly now. I've replaced the door tops, sorted out the clutch pedal, etc. So there's been quite a bit of work on that. This is a keeper. I'm hoping to get this a lot more sorted next year. In particular, a full respray. I've got a lot of work to do on that, but that's another keeper. And then behind me, you can probably see my ex-military Series 3, 109-inch, that stayed as well. I've not driven that quite so much. It's done a bit of local off-roading. Not been to any car meets in it, actually. That is another project car, a bit of a nightmare one, if I'm honest. It took me quite a long time. I did an ignition system overhaul and now got that running nicely as well. So that's a great start. The main job on that is treating a bit more rust, but the respray as well. Stripping back that old paint is going to be a pain. So that's a job for 2025. Watch this space. And then behind me you can see probably the only vehicle that hasn't featured on my channel because it's pretty hideous. It's an LDV MAXUS minibus conversion. So I bought this as a 16-seat minibus, extra long wheelbase, extra height. I don't know how long I've had it, maybe 5 years or more. I used it as a van for a while, stripped out all the seats, and then I've converted it as a day van, basically. So I've done some weekends away and things with the dogs. It doesn't get used this much. I've done very low mileage because unfortunately the dogs don't travel anymore, as I mentioned. So that's a very, very basic day van. So we're now onto the new cars that have come into the garage this year, starting with this X350 Jaguar XJ Super V8. So this is 2003 Japanese import, supercharged 4.2 V8, so 400 horsepower, and ultra luxury. It's like an XJR, but with all the bells and whistles and kind of comfort setting rather than the more sporty XJR. I love these. It's in incredible condition, super refined and luxury, and they're great to drive. I bought this on an online auction. So Audi RS6, C5 RS6, high-risk car. I bought this quite recently at an auction actually because I thought it was fairly good value. I always used to want one of these 20 years ago. 4.2 V8 twin-turbo engine, developed in collaboration with Cosworth, gave about 450 horsepower, just under as standard. This one's modified, probably running about 510, 520 horsepower. Great car, a nice interior. It's got some modifications on KW coilovers, etc. Gearbox, notorious weak point on these, all seems good on that front. So I've not yet done a video on this, but there'll be a video coming very soon on it. And then without doubt, my favourite purchase of the year, one I still can't quite believe I bought and still incredibly excited about. Noble M12 GTO 3R. So this is a 2004. These obviously created by Lee Noble. Only roughly 165 of this exact model were produced for the UK market. They ran a Ford Duratec 3-litre V6 twin-turbo engine. This one's got an absolute ton of modifications. I'll do lots more videos on that this year. Running about 430 or so horsepower. Just an incredible car to drive. The handling, the experience, the theatre, the speed, it's superb. I love it. There'll be lots of videos on this. That's an update for 2024 for my mini, slightly odd collection of cars. It's constantly changing, so watch this space. As I say, there are videos on, I think, all of these cars that you've seen today. There's videos on, if not coming very shortly. So please do check them out and watch this space for any new additions and new videos. And thanks very much for watching.